Happy Friday, Canucks fans. You made it. You made it to the end of the week, and we thank you for joining us. And if you're on podcast, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you were listening to this. I actually got a message from someone last week that said, I was in an Uber home from downtown, heavily intoxicated at 2:30 in the morning, and I asked my Uber driver if I could listen to a podcast. And then the Uber driver's like, I listen to Canucks Convo as well. And so an Uber, we basically connected two people. I'm dead serious. I can't believe I didn't tell you this. Absolutely. Yeah. An Uber driver and the intoxicated passenger. And I think he was with a group. He didn't really tell me if he was with a group. I'm assuming he wasn't by himself, but maybe he was. Him and the Uber driver were both Canucks Convo listeners, and they started connecting over Canucks Convo.
Dude, that's awesome.
It was a beautiful story. And we thought we wouldn't have anything to talk about today.
It's hilarious. Like, most people, when they're like hammered or whatever, they want to listen to their favorite music. These guys just like, let's fire up Canucks Convo. I love that. That's the first thing that comes to mind.
We could like talk people on their way home. Just hold it in, champ. You're almost home. You're going to be just fine. You're doing all right. That was me right now telling the people that are listening to this late at night on their way home. It is a Friday. That, hey, you're going to be just fine. You're going to be just fine. Sometimes you don't know. Sometimes you don't know. Okay. Big news today, so we won't waste any more time. My name is Dave Grelly. That is Harmon Dial, our technical producer. The man at the controls is Grady Sass. And we got to tell you something. We got to tell you that our episode of Canucks Conversation, hey, maybe this is what your Uber driver is driving. If not, he should be. It's brought to you by the 2023 Toyota BZ4X. The BZ4X is Toyota's brand new all-electric SUV that is designed to go the distance for you and your family. The BZ4X is packed with Toyota's coolest tech, but it still has that trusty SUV feel you know and love. And even though it's electric, it's capable of effortlessly conquering any terrain. Whether it's rain, snow, mud, or your friend's questionable post-game recaps, the BZ4X will get you through it all. And of course, we are coming to you from the iconic Wall Center in downtown Vancouver. Looking for your next meeting space? Contact the Wall Center for all your event needs at sales@wallcenter.com. Maybe you don't want to hop in an Uber. Head on down to the Wall Center. Got places to stay here. Got Sheraton Wall Center right here. Right here. You can say I see suitcases all the time, right in the heart of downtown Vancouver. All right, big news, Harm. Christian Felton signs. What can you tell us?
Break it down.
Right. Okay. So a little inside baseball for folks. Right before we went to air, I said to Harm, we have to talk about Christian Felton. He's like, I don't know. Nobody knows who Christian Felton is. And you're like, don't ask me about Christian Felton. And I said, well, now that you've said that, I have to just say, okay, Harm, tell us about Christian Felton. I know you're not the person to ask. I'm not the person to ask. So I asked Dave Hall, and I asked a few other people. 24-year-old right shot defenseman, 6'1", played in the BCHL, so you know he's got a shot at making it to the pros. Yeah, this was kind of a joke that we're talking about it, but it's the only Canucks news that has happened other than the other big thing, Quinn Schmiemann getting traded for future considerations. Harm, what do you think about the future considerations coming back to the Canucks?
Well, you know what's funny? I actually wondered, when these GMs make trades for future considerations, what does it actually end up being? Like, is it actually nothing? And from poking around, talking to other people, it depends on the general manager. So some GMs, future considerations will mean, if I'm in town to play your team, then the two GMs, like, you're going to take me out for dinner. Like, you're going to pay for my dinner.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I've heard that story.
This is amazing. I did not know that.
Sometimes it's like a pack of gum. I'm not even joking.
Shut up.
At the draft, not this year, I think it was maybe the year before, I was talking to another colleague. I was actually going to work on that as a story, and maybe I should do it. But yeah, like, I heard about a dinner, heard about a pack of gum. It depends on the GM, apparently.
Dude, that's amazing. Okay, well, this just gives me so... Now I have way more to talk about. Oh my gosh. You absolutely have to write that story. You absolutely need to tell that story. The craziest things that we've seen future What do you think Spencer Martin was traded for in the end? Like, what do you think? Do you think Julian Brisebois came into town and was just like to Jim Benning? He's like, hey, that Spencer Martin trade a couple of years ago, pay up.
I don't know. Some gyms it's nothing, but I mean, those are the couple stories that I've heard of. Lou Lamoriello apparently has some interesting future considerations type stories in terms of little things that he asks for. But yeah, I'd be curious what Jim Benning wanted in future considerations, or what Rutherford and Alvin look for now.
Meat and potatoes.
Gum. You mentioned a pack of gum, maybe just a single stick of gum. Couldn't negotiate the full pack.
Yeah.
From Nick P, I like this. He said they don't publicize it so guys aren't embarrassed. Otherwise, you get chirped as the guy traded for a dinner. I think that's good for the game. I'm not going to lie. Like, I understand the NHLPA might have something to say about that. I think that's great for the game to be like, he was traded for spaghetti and meatballs.
Yeah.
But this guy was much better, so he was traded for surf and turf.
It's basically like for a little favor. And
That's
that little
amazing.
favor could be gum, it could be dinner.
Wow. That's really funny. I didn't know that. I honestly, I have to think a lot of our listeners didn't know that. That's really funny.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's so good. This just made my day. And we got Nar in the YouTube live chat talking about squirrels. Yeah. All
okay.
right.
I was gonna say, as soon as you brought up Nar, I'm like, oh god, it's gonna be another squirrel joke, isn't it?
He's got a lot of.
He keeps
squirrel
commenting on all our posts too. Just squirrel.
Oh, it's the best. It's the best. Okay, Karen Versation. Where does Felton fall on the depth chart? Number 6 right-handed defenseman in Abbotsford. Yes. No, he's going to be a little bit higher than number 6 right-handed defenseman. Like maybe he'll be, that kind of bottom pairing guy, but Abbotsford's been tested this year. Their depth has definitely been tested. And I think the sense I get is that they weren't too happy with what came of their depth being tested. And I remember I went down with Faber to an Abbotsford game a month ago, and Jeremy Colleton wasn't happy. And that was a game where the Abbotsford Canucks fell to the San Jose Barracuda, who aren't a great team in the AHL. And they just looked like an absolute mess. They didn't really look like a pro hockey team, as crazy as that is to say. They looked very bad. And after the game, we were talking to Colleton, who's been on the show many times, super honest guy, really, really like Jeremy Colleton. And he was kind of talking about how, we have some guys out right now, and there are guys in positions that they wouldn't normally be in. And he kind of stopped himself short of basically saying, I'm appalled at how these guys that are getting these opportunities are doing absolutely nothing with them. So I think they want to improve the depth down in Abbotsford, to say the least, because I don't think they were very happy with what their depth did when they were kind of sprung into the lineup and given those shots.
Yeah, and you have to remember that Noah Juleson was number 1 right side defense last season, right?
Yep.
Spent nearly the entire year up until he got called up late. In Abbotsford, now you take away essentially your top pair piece on the right side. That's going to have a trickle-down effect. Now guys are playing a little bit above their, where they should be slotted, perhaps. Of course, you bring in a guy like, Cole McWard. That helps. I think Philip Johansson, big picture, has probably been disappointing. I remember around this time last year having conversations with RJ, and they viewed Johansson as a player, considering he was ripping up the SHL, as a guy that may have legit NHL potential as soon as this season. They figured that he could contend for a spot, and right from, I believe we saw him in Penticton, but if not, then at least in training camp preseason, wasn't particularly impressed with his defensive play. I think he's been a letdown compared to what we thought he might be a year ago.
Every time I've watched Philip Johansson play, he just looks late to every puck. Looks like he's late on every read. Again, I haven't been impressed, but I will say, because you just brought up RJ, right? At this past trade deadline, Johansson, unprompted, got name dropped by Patrick Levine. Well, I shouldn't say unprompted, but he was asked about the depth that the organization has, and he brings up Philip Johansson. So the organization clearly still believes in this guy, right? So again, we're not here to slag on Philip Johansson. I'm just saying that it doesn't surprise me that the organization would say, okay, let's go get another bullet in our chamber that we think we might be able to develop into something. But again, you talk about development. The guy's 24 years old, Christian Felton. And I don't know, this is turning into a really negative take on the Abbotsford Canucks, which is not usually what we do on this show. And I'm not trying to make it a negative take on the Abbotsford Canucks. It's just, it was a question. We're answering a question. Another thing that people are talking about in the YouTube live chat is Elias Pettersson, 2.0, the defenseman, going down to Abbotsford. Dave Hall today wrote at Canucks Army, that piece is up there now, where Elias Pettersson fits on the Abbotsford Canucks blue line, goes into his season as a whole in the Allsvenskan League. And we had Cam Robinson on yesterday, and Cam Robinson thinks it's going to be a pretty easy transition. I'm not saying temper expectations a little bit, but, and again, I guess Cam knows better than I do. I'm just thinking that, okay, well, if it was so hard for Philip Johansson to make this jump over, and again, Philip Johansson isn't the same caliber of player as Elias Pettersson, I'm just wondering what that transition actually looks like, and if we should maybe just temper expectations a little bit. I think the people that are saying, oh, maybe Elias Pettersson can play in the NHL next year, they should temper expectations a little bit. This is a guy getting his feet wet in Abbotsford. He's going to play there next year. Temper your expectations a little bit if that's where your expectations are. I just wonder what they actually look like down in Abbotsford.
Yeah, I don't think many people are honestly getting ahead of themselves. Did you honestly see people saying that they want to see DPD playing on the NHL team next year?
Harmon, 3 years ago, I saw people saying how Adam Gaudette was going to be this team's number 2 center. How maybe not 2 years ago, maybe like 6 years ago. Go look at like Reddit 6 years ago.
Yeah, I know, but
Tony Utonen is going to be holding down the third pair. Every prospect they have is going to hit.
Yeah, but I haven't seen anyone. I don't think I've seen a single person, and maybe I just am not on Twitter enough.
I'm not going to call people out. I have 3 people in mind that I'll tell you about that I can literally think of that I've seen this on Twitter, and you'll be like, oh. Anyways.
Okay, fair enough. In that case, I mean, yeah, it's going to take time, especially a player who's a defensive defenseman. It takes them a little bit of time to learn how to apply their defensive skills to a higher professional level. In Pettersson's case, I do think the smaller ice surface in North America will actually help his game because he plays a more physical style. He is probably going to benefit from the corners, and like there's more play in the corners below the dots in the offensive zone. That's going to help him the same way that, for example, offensively, the transition from SHL to NHL for Nils Höglander, smaller ice here, it helped him because Höglander is so good below the dots and spinning out of corners. Now in the NHL, when he makes those moves, creates a little bit of space, he's already so much closer to the net, whereas on the bigger ice surface, he makes a move and he's still got a ways to go to actually be able to attack to the net. Now, as a defenseman, the style of play Pettersson plays where he can assertively close checks below the hash marks in that sense, can win a lot of puck battles. That's going to help him because there's less space for those forwards to, like, it's the ice is basically compressed down low.
Nick P about Elias Pettersson 2.0. How much is he hoping that the payroll department gets their checks mixed up? That's a good comment, Nick. That's a great comment. Here's the thing that stood out for me in Dave Hall's article about where Elias Pettersson might fit in the line. Because remember, this is a left shot defenseman. The team just got Guillaume Brisebois back. They've been missing him all year. And again, when I talk about guys that Abbotsford's been missing, that they've been hurting, Guillaume Brisebois, Christian Wolanin hasn't played much. This is the most interesting couple paragraphs for me. This is from Dave Hall's article. He's talking about Matt Irwin, solid veteran, how they're probably going to use him in the playoffs. And he said, then there's Hirose, Akito Hirose, of course, who missed most of the season with a lower body injury. Since returning, Hirose hasn't shown much, contributing 0 points while looking lost in the defensive end. While it's understandable that Hirose is a step behind after missing so many games, even before his injury stint, Hirose's play left much to be desired for someone his age. If there were any skater to sit and be replaced by Pettersson, it would likely be Hirose. What Hirose lacks in size and aggressiveness, EP26 makes up for in spades. Come playoffs, that raw physicality will be sorely needed. That comes as a bit of a surprise to me, to be honest with you, that Akito Hirose, this guy, and hey, you want to talk about guys that people were penciling into NHL lineups?
Not just NHL lineups. I saw some people have the OEL buyout slotting him onto the second pair.
Yes.
In the top 4.
In the NHL top 4. Now we're talking about him maybe not being able to crack Abbotsford's lineup. And again, this isn't an anti-Akito Hirose campaign. It's just talking about that when your depth is tested, you want to have these guys available to you. And look, Matt Irwin's probably not going to be here next year. So it's not like Akito Hirose being sat out for the playoffs is the end of his development and end of his time with the Canucks organization. Not at all. But it will be interesting to see if Elias Pettersson is the one that gets into those games and if he outplays Akito Hirose, who don't want to take any victory laps on, but I did tell everybody, try not to read too much into what these games at the end of the year, because Hirose did look okay.
How old is he now, 25?
Hirose is 24, turning 25 next month.
Yeah,
literally.
So I think there's a new curve. If you're older than me and you're not really a prospect anymore.
That's a good curve. That is a good curve. Am I older? No, he's older than both of us. Yeah. He is older than both of us. That's very funny. If you're older than Quanson Harm, you're not really a prospect anymore. All right. Well, we didn't even plan on talking about Abbotsford, but we talked about Christian Felton as a joke, and it turned into a big Abbotsford segment. So anyways, we'll keep following along with the Abbotsford Canucks. Nikita Tolopilo going to get a lot of starts down in Abbotsford. And of course, you can read the Farmies over at CanucksArmy.com. We'll have coverage of those. And again, Elias Pettersson's debut, going to have it heavily covered. He's out skating with the team. Okay. Let's get to the Canucks playoff opponents. We wanted to talk about that. And I wasn't thinking we would do any ad reads because I thought the Canucks playoff opponents was going to be happening in our first segment, but I got to tell you about one of our sponsors, and I'm excited to tell you about them. That sponsors is the Wendy's Daily Faceoff Survivor Pool game. Wendy's is letting you win real food with your fantasy teams this year and Daily Faceoff. For those of you who smoke the competition, Wendy's is rewarding you with weekly prizes that will have you winning. Download the Wendy's app and score yourself 150 bonus reward points on your first order and grab a sweet victory from the mouth-watering jaws of defeat along with some fresh, never-frozen beef. Sign up to play Daily Faceoff Fantasy Survivor to win weekly prizes like the spicy chicken sandwich from Wendy's and the Wendy's app. And make sure you throw yourself some chicken nuggets for just $3.49. You can pick up some nuggets. Pairs well with any meal at Wendy's. Wendy's Daily Faceoff Survivor. I'm out already. Corey Anderson, this is why you don't get too excited about overage college signings. Josh Tevez was a name you brought up. I remember Josh Tevez. Brogan Rafferty, even to some extent.
Yeah.
Even though he was
Rafferty
a great guy.
hype was pretty unreal too, considering he was lighting up the AHL for a while.
He was lighting up the AHL. He was like one of the first player guests we had on Canucks Convo, like 2018 or 2019-20. Talked to us a lot about The Bachelor. He's a big fan of The Bachelor. Anyways, okay, let's get to the Canucks playoff opponents. You and I want to talk about this right now, Harm. If the playoffs started today, your Vancouver Canucks, folks, would be facing the Vegas Golden Knights in round one of the playoffs.
Yeah, and that's why I've said in light of Demko's injury that it doesn't really matter if the team doesn't get the results win-loss wise, because finishing first in the conference doesn't carry the same stakes if you're just going to end up playing Vegas. Anyway, now with the Golden Knights, I've had a tough time figuring out exactly what they are this year.
Cheaters. Sorry.
I'm going to ignore that. LTIR.
Yeah.
But no, without Mark Stone, without Tomas Hertl, it's hard to judge them because they're so inconsistent this year. They're playing pretty bad hockey lately. Yeah. Like watching them in person, I was like, this doesn't even look like the same team that won the Stanley Cup last spring. They're having problems breaking the puck out. They're permissive defensively. There are even question marks in terms of like what version of Jack Eichel are the Vegas Golden Knights going to get, because in the past when he's been hurt and he comes back from injury, it takes him a while to get going. Now, he only returned from injury a few games ago. Now, I think he's had a couple multi-point nights recently, but that's always a concern with Eichel is, okay, if he just got hurt, is he going to be at 110%? Are you going to get the version of Jack Eichel that is a good player, but not the best player in that lineup? Or are you going to get the version of him that dominated in the postseason last year? So that's something to keep an eye on in terms of them as a potential playoff opponent. Aiden Hilson's coming back from injury in late January, 902 save percentage.
Yeah.
He slipped a lot. And like I said, they just bleed chances defensively. They look slow. That was one of my big takeaways when the Canucks played them, was when the Canucks are hounding them, applying a lot of puck pressure, they just seem to not have an answer for that. So them getting healthy again is going to be a huge concern. And with Minnesota winning, Minnesota's only 4 points back now of Vegas.
Vegas lost 4-1 last night. Not only did they lose 4-1, they had a 1-0 lead going into the third period. They give up 4 goals, a 4 unanswered goals to the Calgary Flames, and they lose 4-1. And that's just that's not good. Like, that's not good enough. And if you're going to make the playoffs, as much as we joke about the cheater thing and the LTIR and Mark Stone's on, they're cheating. As much as we joke about that, there's a world where they miss the playoffs because they don't have the star power that they would have in game one of the playoffs, you assume.
And I had a hot take on the trade deadline show on Carson Price that they will miss the playoffs. Now, I
Ooh.
didn't buy it because I just figured, all that talent, there could have come back. But I'm starting to think more and more now. I still don't fully believe it, but keep in mind they have 2 games coming up to finish the season off with the Minnesota Wild, who are, breathing down their necks. I think there's like a 4-point difference right now in the standings. So, yeah, all of a sudden they are going to have some pretty meaningful games here down the stretch.
And that's the thing is people in the YouTube live chat are really hoping it's the Minnesota Wild.
Yeah, it's just like, 2 years ago, right? They lose Stone, and
Yeah,
you still
Vegas.
think, okay, they've got Eichel, they've got, like, on paper, it's still clearly a playoff caliber team.
Yeah.
They
They're
had just
going to
made
find
the
a way.
trade for Eichel too in that year, right?
Yeah, in November of
Yeah.
that year. And so they just couldn't get it together. It seemed like chemistry-wise, they weren't able to gel as a team, and they have been hammered by injuries all year.
Yeah.
Not just Stone on the back end. For a long time, they were missing Theodore. They are without Martinez right now as well, and that's where I'm looking at. Man, if they weren't able to bring in Hanifin on the blue line to help inject some mobility, to give them some puck moving, help improve their pace, I'd be worried about their breakouts from the back end, because Martinez, even when he was healthy, wasn't the same player. It looked like he's been on a decline this season, and I think that's part of the reason they brought Hanifin in was, okay, Hanifin is our long-term Martinez replacement beyond this season, but you also have like bigger bodies like McNabb and Haig, Whitecloud, who defend so well without the puck, but for whatever reason they've struggled with the puck this year. And I know in Vegas, a big part of the narrative was, okay, once we get Shea Theodore back, our breakouts will be fixed.
Yeah.
Theodore has come back, and their breakouts still haven't really been fixed. And it's not just that they're losing these games; they're losing the territorial battle. They're getting outchanced and not looking right in some of these contests.
Well, and that's what the Canucks did to them too when they beat them.
Yeah. And from Minnesota's perspective, why they've been on the surge, watching them lately, Kirill Kaprizov finally looks like Kirill Kaprizov again. Since mid-January, I think it was Michael Russo who brought up this stat. He's got 21 goals, which leads all NHL players in goal scoring. So early in the season, Kaprizov still feeling the lingering effects of an injury he suffered at the end of last season. His skating didn't look the same. He didn't look dynamic. He didn't have his elusive edge work, escapability. He has all of that back. And so he's in like Nathan McKinnon, I'm putting this team on my back. Type of mode. And they're finally getting good goaltending again. Marc-Andre Fleury has like a .926 save percentage over the last several starts. I think 11 or 12 starts he's had, which is huge because Philip Gustafsson last season had the second highest save percentage of all goaltenders in the NHL, behind only Allmark, who won the Vezina. Gustafsson has laid an egg this year, and for a while it's like, okay, our 1A guy isn't picking up the slack. Now we got Fleury, who is 39 years old, so you can't really expect him to carry the mail. But now Fleury seems to be turning back the clock, and once they fixed the goaltending and gotten their superstar talent back, they've played an extra game, so that that doesn't help in terms of the playoff math. But they're nipping on the heels there.
Something interesting about Vegas that I'm just looking at Vegas's kind of scoring totals and everything. Jonathan Marchessault has 37 goals. After him, William Karlsson with 23 goals. They have 3 players that have 20 goals or more. Jack Eichel has 20 exactly, and then there's nobody else. It's William Karlsson with 23, Jack Eichel with 20, and then, as I said, Marchessault with 37. Nobody else has touched 20 goals this year.
Can you imagine if they miss and they went in, grabbed Hanifin, they grabbed Hurdle? Now I know he's injured, but man, that would be chef's kiss. And I know a lot of people around the NHL would be pretty happy.
That's the crazy thing is, like, they missed 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever. Was it 2 years ago, huh? Yeah, 2 years ago. And that wasn't the end of Vegas. Like, that's what keeps them competitive is they go out and do the Hanifins. They go out and do Tomas Hurdle. Like, he's still signed for years.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to have him for years.
They got retention too, right?
Exactly. So, and if they miss the playoffs this year, by no means does it mean that, Vegas is done. They shouldn't have made those moves. Like, not at all.
They should have made those moves, but I will say they're at the tail end of their cup window, especially considering some of the contracts that they have coming up, the age of some of their core players. You brought up Marchessault, by far leading them in goals. He's 33 years old and a UFA at the end of the season, and he's only making $5 million this year. So he's got a decision to make. How much does he love it in Vegas? Because if he's the type of player that says, well, I've won my Stanley Cup, I want to cash in on my Conn Smythe, having that on my resume and still being a top goal scorer, I want to get paid. Well, that's not going to happen in Vegas. They're pretty ruthless about getting rid of guys once it's not a fit in terms of age and contract anymore.
Exactly.
So you've got him to deal with. You've got Chandler Stevenson at 29 years old. The main thing with him is he's put up consistently in the 60-ish point range at under $3 million. So a tremendous value contract. He's a UFA. He's probably going to walk. You've got on the back end at the not end of this season, but end of next season, Shea Theodore just makes just $5.2 million. He's going to be a UFA. Braden McNabb under $3 million on that second pair. He's going to be UFA the same year as well. So you've got two of your better defensemen that are going to be up and commanding more dollars. Plus, Alex Pietrangelo already right now is 34 years old. William Karlsson, such a key two-way stud for them, is 31 years old. That team is starting to get older and they're running into some contract situations. I'm not saying they're going to fall off a map next season, but even like Mark Stone, he's an injury-prone player that is now 31 years old. Like, they don't have a lot of cup runs left in them. It's probably another, I mean, I don't want to put an exact timeline on it, but put it this way. In 3 years, I would be surprised if they're still bona fide Stanley Cup contenders. I think this season, next, maybe the year after is their window to get another cup.
Yeah, they've traded a lot of futures too with prospects and mostly draft picks. So that eventually catches up to teams, right?
I was just gonna bring that up. They've kept their first round pick for this draft, but in this draft they pick in the first round and then 6th and 7th round, and that's it. 2 picks in the 7th round, I should say, but four picks for this upcoming draft, and they kept that first round pick. They've traded away 2025. They've traded away 2026. And you just look at it and say, okay, this seems like a team that's kind of aware that their window might be ending, and they're saying, okay, if we want to extend this window, the guy we select in the first round of the 2024 draft might help us accomplish that, but by 2025, 2026, it might be too late. And they might go try and flip some of these guys. Like, that's the thing. I struggle to count Vegas out and say in 2-3 years, I think they're going to be done. I struggle to do that just because of what we've seen them do in the past in terms of flipping guys and extending their window, extending it more. And like we've talked about many times on this show, being absolutely ruthless with the way they do business.
And that's what they're trying to do with Hanifin. And a huge part of it is, I'm sure they looked at, boy, we've got a bit of an aging blue line. Like even McNabb, it's not just a contract situation. He's just 33. Like he's getting up there in age as well. So I'm sure that was part of the logic in Hanifin was, we're getting up there. We need to inject some younger pieces, even though Hanifin's not that young. He's at least under 30.
Yeah, exactly. Still 27 years old. 3 years when the cup window's over, he'll be 30, so they can flip him. They can flip him when they need to. Okay, anything else on playoff opponents?
Nashville?
Yeah, like Nashville's the most favorable one, I'd say, right? And I saw someone on Twitter say this, and I really, really appreciated it. You should never wish for an opponent, because the minute you do, that opponent will show up and kick your teeth in.
True. But I will say, this isn't Canucks specific, but I think the PWHL has introduced the rule where you can pick your first round play. I love that.
Okay, so if there was that rule, sorry, explain the rule more. Explain the rule for those that haven't heard of it.
I don't know the exact intricacies of like, what spot do you have to finish to be able to pick your opponent, how many teams pick, but essentially the premise is if you're one of the top teams, you get to pick your playoff opponent in the first round.
So first round, first seed, number 1 seed in the PWHL gets a bye through the first round of the playoffs, and then they pick their semifinal. I think it's either, semifinal opponent from the 3rd and 4th place finishers for a 5-game series.
You have 24 hours to pick.
The thing I really like about the PWHL is the anti-tanking stuff they have. Have you seen this?
The gold plan. I like that.
Oh my gosh.
I've been on favor.
And I mean, like, I think the NFL should adopt that for sure. Is one league. I think a lot of the leagues would benefit from it. Like, think about what those games would mean. And for those that also haven't heard of that, basically the easiest way to explain this is when a team is eliminated, they are removed from the standings and they are put in a new set of standings with all the other eliminated teams from playoff contention. And then for the rest of the season, all of the points that those teams accumulate, whoever has the most points wins the first overall pick. So you're trying to win games down the stretch in a season where you're missing the playoffs. In past years, in most sport leagues, you wouldn't have much to play for except for, oh yeah, everybody's playing for jobs next year. You know, there's still pride in this room. No. We're playing for Connor Bedard. If the Canucks had those rules, oh my gosh, Canucks would, I get they're kind of a cup contender right now, but the Canucks would be a cup contender this year, and they'd have Bedard. They'd have every first overall pick because in the Jim Betting years, they had the best finish to every single season and came up just short. Like, I think if you go back, and if we implement this and say, okay, let's use these PWHL rules, use these rules and apply them to what happened in past seasons, I guarantee you the Canucks have the first overall pick in at least 3 of the past 10 years.
It would be interesting to go back and see. The
New
key,
homework
though,
for us.
is it's when you're eliminated. So a team like, let's say, Vegas 2 years ago when they missed the playoffs, they got eliminated on what? Like in the final week of the regular season, maybe even with only a couple days left. So they don't have any games to accumulate points, right? That's what I love about the goal plan is a team like that where you're like, okay, well, what happens if a legitimately good team is out of the playoff picture and now all of a sudden they're racking up points? Well, they're just not going to have the runway because presumably they're going to be eliminated late. Whereas in this situation, for example, right now, if you go through the standings, the only
Chicago.
Chicago's the only team that's been eliminated from playoff contention. So it's like the clock starts for them to be able to accumulate points. It doesn't start for any of the other teams.
I like it. I like that. I love it. I really, really like that. Okay, so Canucks playoff opponents. We brought up Nashville. Someone in the chat here. Let me find it. Yeah,
Karen, how do you think the Canucks would match up stylistically against Nashville? Let's say if LA holds down, that third spot in the Pacific, it's most likely Vegas, Nashville, unless Minnesota pops in. If LA were to fall down, then man, that 1-3-1 is just suffocating, and they can shut down the Canucks. That would make for a hell of a boring series. So Nashville, I think, would be, but then again, they're rolling right now. So do you really want to tempt with that?
Yeah, I agree with the premise of you don't want to be banging the table for a specific opponent necessarily. I mean, you think back to when Leafs fans wanted Florida. We want Florida.
We want Florida.
And then you can see how that ended up. But if we're talking most and least favorable potential matchups, I don't want LA, not only because of the whole defensive aspect, but also just entertainment. Like, this is the first time you're going to see playoff hockey in Vancouver. I'm not talking about in the bubble where it's in Edmonton, in Vancouver, in person. You're going to get that type of entertainment factor. Look, it would still be really fun. It would still be really exciting, but I don't want to watch LA trap it up in the playoffs. That's boring.
Yeah. With Nashville, this is what Karen Versation in the chat said. Nashville is scary because Saros can win a series by himself. They don't have top end talent, but they're pretty deep through the lineup. Can wear you down. Yossi is also a stud. Should be on Norris ballots.
Forsberg and Yossi are pretty top end talent, at least the way they've been playing this year.
Exactly. So like, it's not, again, it comes down to, I don't think you want to pick your opponent. I think to some extent, you need to be confident if you're the Canucks and say, we're one of the best teams in the NHL. Teams should be hoping they don't have to play us. Not the other way around of, I hope we don't have to play LA or I hope we don't have to play Vegas or whoever. Like the Canucks have to have some swagger about them at this point in the season and heading into the playoffs, which, man, you look at it, and I was on the phone with my Nono today. People always asking for updates on Nono. He's doing well. The playoffs are going to start in like a month, right?
Yep.
Man, it's going to be a lot of fun. Going to be a lot of fun to cover some playoff hockey in this town. Going to be fun to get down to Rogers Arena. All right. I don't have anything else on the playoff stuff. Do you?
I don't.
All right. I like this. RP88. So this is for anyone else, and I guess I should do the anyone else read before we do. Oh no, we still have to talk about Vancouver, Washington. Yeah, I wanted us to fit in this little game preview. Ethan Bear hasn't been doing too well in Washington. Which, look, I'm not happy about that, but with people asking about it, 1 goal, 3 assists in 24 games. Put up some more points last year playing with Quinn Hughes. Who would have thought?
Yeah, Washington's. You also want to talk about teams that aren't that fun to watch. Washington isn't that fun to watch. Ovi's picked it up lately. Good for him. I will say, by the way, I loved his answer.
I was just gonna say,
day.
You say they're not fun to watch. What about Hendrix Lapierre and Connor McMichael?
Dude, and for those that aren't aware, he was asked ahead of the Edmonton game about having to contend with the challenge of facing McDavid and Draisaitl on separate lines. And Ovi just goes, well, we got Connor McMichael and Hendrix Lapierre on separate lines. And I just love that. I'm so here.
Deadpans and goes, well, we have Connor McMichael and Hendrix Lapierre. That was his answer.
Smirk at the end. I love that.
That was the best. I wish we got those kind of answers when the Canucks were dog water during the 2016 to 2019 run. Just have the
Sedins would never.
Sedin's coming out.
Well, we got
Nick Dowd. What did they call Nick Dowd? They were just like, yeah, we got Nick Dowd. We think he's going to be a really good center in the league for years to come.
We got Jason Megna and Michael Chaput. We got Philip Larson on the back end.
Derek Pouliot.
Philip Home.
Oh, Philip Home.
Goodness.
That's a sensitive topic for me. That's a sensitive topic.
Why did you think he was going to be this like offensive dynamo coming?
I thought he was going to be decent.
I was so mad that Philip Home didn't get a look. I was so mad about it. That first year, I was like 18 years old, right? I was just a fan of the team. I was starting to pay attention to some more coverage, and I was seeing what he was doing in Utica, and I was like, how is this guy not getting a shot at the NHL? And this is the thing is, it was like the biggest issue I had with it was the guys they were rolling out on the back end. It was like, you know what you have in Alex Biega. You know what you have in Ben Hutton. You know what you have in Erica Branson. You know what you have in Ashton Sautner. You know what you have in all of these guys. And I'll tell you something, Harm, it ain't much. And it wasn't much. And I just thought Philip Holm should have gotten a look.
Jimbo's blue line, baby. Ooh.
Philip Holm has one NHL game played in his career.
Vegas.
It's the one he played with the Vancouver Canucks. That was the only NHL game he's ever played.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I thought Philip Larson, right shot, offensive guy, he might have something, but nah. He got decked in New Jersey.
I do remember that.
And Jacob Markstrom was like holding everyone from the scrum ensued, and like a fan was trying to take photos.
Yeah. I remember when one of the earlier
Taylor Hall.
I think Taylor Hall hit him. But one of the things I read in the Provies, like way back when, Botch wrote about a story where in his rookie season, someone got hurt and Elias Pettersson was blocking fans from, taking pictures. Yeah. And he always does that. And that just made me think of that.
Well, that happened earlier this year with, I think it was Kuzmenko when he got hit by the Hronek shot.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And Horvat
helped out.
Islanders game.
They all did that. Yeah.
I hate that stuff. Like,
it's not good.
You don't need to post that. You guys down. Show some respect.
Yeah.
By the way, it's pretty insane that Washington is still in the playoff hunt, considering they're 29th in the NHL in goals for. The only teams that have scored fewer goals per game: Anaheim, San Jose, and Chicago.
Minus 31 goal differential too. That's the other stat.
The East playoff race isn't even a race at this point,
dude. It's like
they're all battling to. It's like they all don't want to make the playoffs. Yeah. They all want to start golfing in late April.
Well, Detroit's lost 7 straight.
Minus 31 goal differential for the Washington Capitals, and they're right there in the hunt.
And I thought New Jersey at some point would get their act together, right? Like that team on paper has so much talent. I'm like, at some point, please, the second wildcard spot is begging for a good team to like grab it.
Here's my hot take. New Jersey takes that second wildcard spot.
No, I don't think so.
68 points.
I don't think so,
points.
Man.
The Islanders have 72 with 65 games played. Mind you, the Islanders have been playing better as of late. They just lost 2 straight though. Like their last 2 they've lost. Did you see Jake Allen's first start in New Jersey?
I didn't. I missed
2 goals on 2 shots, right? And then
and then he stopped everything else.
Yeah.
Like I think 33 saves on 35 shots. New Jersey wins 6-2. Travis Green gets himself a goalie.
I would love it.
That's my hot take. Everybody write it down. New Jersey comes back and takes that spot.
4-6 in their last 10.
Timo Meier is starting to look like himself again, which is important. So yes,
and they got a goalie.
but also their vibes have been off.
I love it.
Okay,
I
this is
love
my first vibes take.
No.
I just feel like the vibes are off this year for them.
They lost Severson, Graves, and they lost Hamilton in free agency last year, and they lost Hamilton early this year. You combine that with not being able to get a save, Jack Hughes injury, like that's a team next year that I could see bouncing back if they add to their decor. You're talking about teams though that could get into the playoffs. The Buffalo Sabres, ever since Bo and Byron have joined them, have some life breathed injected into them.
Injected.
Yeah, I'm stumbling
Just
my words
ditch
here.
the word completely.
Which all of a sudden now next week's game against the Sabres has some meaning to it, just like the Capitals game on Saturday night. Like two teams that are going to be pushing hard here to get into a wild card
now
spot.
Here's the thing that I'll point out is the Sabres have 67 games played. They've got the most games played of all those teams. So by points percentage, they're like right there with New Jersey. So, and they have the same points percentage as the Pittsburgh Penguins. And I get they're starting to win some games right now, but to me, this feels like a lot like the past few years where we'd be like, look, guys, the Canucks are in the playoff race. Like that's the vibes I get. I'm buying that the Devils, if anybody from down there in the standings is going to come back and push for a playoff spot, Devils. I'm saying the Devils pull it off.
Detroit needs Dylan Larkin back
so badly. 7 straight losses.
They lost to the Yotes last night. They lost to them last week. Like, man, if you're a Wings fan right now, you'd be just losing your stuff.
Toronto's going to face Boston in the first round. That's going to be great. Oh, I just love it. I love it. All right. Anything else on playoffs that you want to talk about?
Nope.
Okay. Vancouver versus Washington. This segment that we haven't even started yet is brought to you by 4 Winds. In particular, it's brought to you by the Greg Mills West Coast IPA. Brewed in memory of former owner Greg Mills, Greg is a solid West Coast IPA with notes of citrus, resinous pine, and a solid malt backbone, about as West Coast as an IPA gets. Greg can be found at most liquor stores across BC. If you don't see it at your local bottle shop, ask them to bring it in or order it for home delivery through the 4 Winds online shop at 4windsbrewing.ca. Look at that can. Got a nice, what is that, a Blue Nose? That's a Blue Nose boat. Greg is the beer. Walk into the liquor store, say, I need Greg. Is Greg here? Get me Greg. By 4 Winds Brewing, locally owned and operated in Delta, British Columbia. All right. Let's preview this game, Harm. Anything that stands out for tomorrow's game against the Washington Capitals, aside from Hendrix Lapierre and Connor McMichael?
It's just the fact that they don't score. I mean, that's what from a perspective of you're going to have Casey DeSmith presumably starting, and you've been defending pretty well. You should be able to handle Washington's offense. That's the main thing that I'm looking for is you've got to be able to handle these guys. And considering you have a full 2 days off, very, very winnable game.
Yep. Nick P in the chat saying, did you hear Travis Green break out that's a good team over there line already?
He did?
He did. First game. I was listening to that post-game presser. I was like, oh, Greener is so back. Like, he's so back. He was just itching. Assistant coaches don't get to do media, and he's just thinking to himself after every game, that's a good team over there. And he had nobody to tell it to.
Now I'm waiting for New Jersey to finally play Vancouver at some point, maybe next season, hopefully still have coach. And to get that's a good team over there above
Vancouver. Yeah. Give them credit. They played a good game. That's a good team over there. And the other one, this is a hard league to win in.
Yeah. I thought he was just okay about a player that had a god-awful game.
Yeah, I thought he was okay. Did some good things, did some bad things. We'll watch the tape and look over it. Oh, love me some Travis Green. Okay. Vancouver versus Washington. The thing that stands out to me, Harm, is that this is the game that the Vancouver Canucks should win. It's a perfect game for them to try to get back on track. And someone actually asked me this on Twitter. They said, how different would all the conversations we're having be if the Canucks just beat the Avalanche in overtime? They still would have blown the lead, but how different is the conversation if in overtime where anything can happen, if the Canucks get a bounce and maybe there's no over the glass penalty from Carson Soucy late in the third, if the Canucks win that game and they're on a 5-game heater, like I think the conversation's very different.
Yeah, it is. Almost, unfortunately, don't count.
Yeah. All right. Anything else on the game other than the fact that Casey Smith already been confirmed the starter? Like on Tuesday, Talkett was like, Yeah, well, Casey's definitely going to start the next 2 games because you're talking about Seelovs. And yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't know. I'm trying to think of when we're going to see Seelovs and if we're going to see Seelovs. Maybe that game against Montreal on Thursday, but I wouldn't really bet on it. Like, I don't think so. I don't know. We'll see. If he's going to get a game, I'd have to assume it's that game against the Montreal Canadiens next Thursday. All right. Let's get to anyone else. Folks, take us home. Get to anyone else. Presented by DoorDash. It's our listeners' chance to get involved in the YouTube live chat, and it's also our listeners' chance to get 25% off and 0 delivery fees on their first order of $15 or more when they download the DoorDash app and enter code NATION25. That's all capital letters, NATION, and the numbers 25. Offer valid in Canada. Subject to change. Terms do apply. With Double Dash on DoorDash, you can order from multiple restaurants or stores in the same delivery without additional delivery fees, so everyone can get what they want and need. Check it out. DoorDash. The code is NATION25. Okay. What do we got in anyone else? I saw one from Nick that I wanted to read. I got to scroll up and find it. Yeah, here it is, Harm. Throwing it to you. This one from Nick P, whose name I pronounced accurately one time. I can't remember how to do it, though. Nick P.
Poschek? Remember his uncle played in the NHL.
Poschek. Yeah, Poschek. He said, Duhaime and Trenin look decent for Colorado. Did the Canucks make a mistake not adding any depth players that may have only cost a mid-round pick?
I don't necessarily think so. I mean, it's only one game.
I think mistake is too strong of language. Would we have liked to see them make a move like that? Yes.
And Duhaime went for a third. I think that's a little rich.
That is
like
steep.
If we're talking 4th or 5th, yes, but a third is steep in my opinion. I didn't put it this way. When the trade happened and Duhaime went for a third, I was like, you know what? That's okay. I don't have a problem with the Canucks missing out on him, even though I like the player. He has really just been a 4th line player all year, and Trenin as well. Thing is, I love Trenin as a player too, but for a 3rd round pick as well, it's a little too rich for my blood.
Top G in the chat. Something I miss about the bad years of the Canucks is the cheap ticket prices. You see what tickets are going for these days?
Yeah, it's pretty nuts.
It's bad. They're expensive. And hey, they're selling out. They're selling out every game, and good for them. Good for the Canucks, right?
I had a couple friends that wanted to go to the Boston game on Saturday night, and they were like, the cheapest tickets to get in that they saw were like a couple $100.
Yep. Yeah, it's not affordable. Yeah. And like I saw on Twitter today people talking about BC Ferries jacking up the prices.
Really?
I don't know if that's true, but they were just saying it's very expensive to hop on a ferry. You know, even if you're not going to get a hotel, you're staying with family or whatever. Like, it's expensive to come from Vancouver Island now to come to a game. But man, I remember the days of when the tickets were like, I was getting tickets for like $30 and they were like good seats because I was using different apps, and it was the best.
Especially for the families. Those are the ones that I feel with. If you're like a family of 4 trying to go to a game and might be getting some food as well, that's really expensive.
You're like almost picking between Disneyland or a Canucks game.
Yeah, especially because cost of living in general is through the roof. I mean, look at gas lately.
Yeah, that's what we should talk about. Yeah, gas actually went up overnight. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw a report that it's supposed to be $2.30.
No,
by like May. Some projection.
My gosh,
by RBC or one of these financial institutions that does projections.
Yeah, who finance Canada. Gas prices won't get any better for the Canadian consumer, expert says. Yeah, it could reach $2.30 by man.
I'm screwed. I have premium.
See, I just got a new car.
To work.
I just got a new car, and now I drive an SUV, and it has a bigger gas tank, so it holds more gas, and it's way better on gas than my old car. My old car, you know all about my old car.
Yeah.
There's so many issues with that piece of junk. But anyways, it like I'm paying for regular gas now. I used to have to pay for premium. My gosh, I'm saving so much money just from the fact that I'm now buying regular gas. Crazy. I'm gonna have to make some trips down to Seattle, go watch some Mariners games, fill up down there. That's what you got to do. 20. Wow, jeez. Loaf of bread's like $6 now too. Anyways, all right. NAR play-in round, single game elimination. Some say it's likely coming. Thoughts? We've seen other leagues expand their playoffs arm. Do you think the NHL should? I'm unequivocally in favor of yes.
I don't know about single game eliminations, like a little bit too. I'd want to see it at least 3 games.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I don't think I like single game elimination.
Hockey's too random for like one game, but I will say before I wasn't in favor of expanding the playoffs with the idea of a play-in, because I was like, you're inviting more teams to do the Jim Benning approach of let's build a mediocre team and hope we squeak into the playoffs. But the more I think about it, it could spice up the regular season in the sense that now there's a race to finish top 6 in your conference.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you don't want your season to be potentially cost by this play-in round, like if your logic is, well, if you're a 7th place team in the conference, it would suck to be eliminated by like the 9th place team in your conference. Well, then finish top 6.
Yeah. So Harm, if there was an expanded playoffs, like let's say there's 2 extra spots, right? All those teams in the East that we just mentioned would be fighting for play-in spots. The only teams in the East that would be like out of it are the Montreal Canadiens, Ottawa Senators, and Columbus Blue Jackets. That's it. Everybody else would be in the thick of a race right now, and we'd be talking about who's going to make it to the play-in round, who's going to do this. In the West, the only teams that are out of it right now, the Arizona Coyotes, the Anaheim Ducks, the Chicago Blackhawks, and the San Jose Sharks. Those are the only teams that would be eliminated, and there's a month left in the season, right? Instead, we're looking at, okay, if Calgary wants to make the playoffs, they got to go like 14-3 or something, right? In their remaining games that they have. St. Louis, same sort of deal. It's going to take a miracle for St. Louis to get in. And, you know, even though I picked them, Devils, Sabres, same sort of thing. It's that fake sense of we might be able to do it that the Canucks have had for all these years.
Remember when you took over, it's like, oh, we're only 3 to 5 points back, but you're not really in it.
Exactly. You're not in it. You're not in it. That's the thing.
And the point isn't to reward those teams. The point is just you spice up the race to then even finish top 6 in the conference. And it would be teams in the position that Vegas is right now, where they're, even though Minnesota is nipping at their heels, they're still pretty safe.
Yeah.
Like I'd give them what, like 75% chances of making the playoffs. It'd be a fan base like that would be like, well, hold on a second. We don't want to expand the playoffs. Well, then for a team like that, it'd be like, too bad. Finish in top 6 in your conference.
Yeah. Nar really likes the idea of single game. I don't know about single game for hockey. I don't.
Single game's too random.
I even, and not to tie it into baseball as I always do, but like the MLB, for example, they had their wild card game. They scrapped that. Now it's a wild card series. I like that much more. I think it's way funnier that the Blue Jays have to lose 2 games in the wild card now every single year. I think that's hilarious. Like, it's great. It's great television watching a team get that, you know, because again, sometimes there is a lot of randomness, even in baseball. There's a lot of randomness in a game. You got to win 2 games. You got to win 2. And if you lose 2 straight, I think that's hilarious. And that's what we've seen. We saw a lot of sweeps last year in the MLB playoffs. But anyways, I like it. Anyways, yeah, play-in. A lot of conversation about the play-in. I also agree that they should go 1 to 8. I don't like this.
Yeah.
Number 2 in the division plays number 3. No, get rid of that. 1 to 8. Give me 1 to 8. If it were 1 to 8, who would the Canucks be playing? If the playoffs started today, still the Vegas Golden Knights. Because I guess if you're the conference, yeah, okay. But then you'd get Colorado, LA, Dallas, Nashville, Winnipeg, Edmonton. That'd be great. Like, I like the 1 to 8 idea. I really do. I really like it. All right. Here we go. Oh, yeah. Jeff Patterson wrote about this. We didn't even bring it up. So yesterday there was the little scuffle between Garland and Hronek. Garland talked about it today. That is up on CanucksArmy.com. As you may have guessed, folks, he downplayed it quite a bit. Of course he did, right? Like it's no big deal. That's what we said yesterday. It's a battle drill. They're in a battle drill. And look, battling against Connor Garland is frustrating. And I think that's basically what he said in the story. Jeff Patterson wrote about it. You can go read it over at Canucks Army. The reason I bring it up is because RP88 in the chat said, do you think Garland's going to gain crazy good chemistry with Hronek now that they've fought at practice? Because, of course, Garland got into the little, that was more of a fight with Dakota Joshua in training camp. And obviously those two now have some of the best chemistry of any pair of players on the Canucks this season. I was thinking about this. Do you realize that scrap between Joshua and Garland started with Garland going low on Joshua, Joshua came up and swung his stick at Filip Hronek.
Oh, yeah, he thought it was Hronek. I remember.
Hronek's like, me? Like, it wasn't me.
I remember Hronek being like,
yeah, Hronek's like, what's up? Like, why are you slashing me? Because, like,
had a WTF look at his face.
Yeah, he was like, "What's going on? Like, is this what they do on this new team that I'm on? Is this normal?" Because yeah, Joshua just comes up swinging at Hanewinckel, and then someone mentioned on the bench, I think, is that hey, it was Garland, and then Joshua skated over to Garland, and that's how that all happened. And the rest is history. Those two have been great together. So that's a good comment from RP88. But I think we'll wrap it up there. Closing thoughts for the weekend. Oh, I'm so excited for the weather, the sun.
I know.
So nice. I'm playing my first round of golf.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Like an actual round of golf, or are
Yeah.
you pretty good?
Yeah. Oh, no. I'm not good. I can play the sport, but no, I'm not good.
Yeah. I'm all right at pitch and putt, but I can't golf full courses because I haven't really practiced my driving.
That's fair. You start. That's where you start on the pitch and putt. I didn't play a full course till I was like 18. I've been playing since I was like 12.
Oh, I've played a full course, but you'd hardly call that playing.
Fair enough. All right. On that note, we'll wrap it up. For my co-host Harmon Dial and our technical producer Grady Sass, my name is Dave Quadrelli. Have a good weekend, folks. Thanks for watching Canucks Conversation. Canucks Conversation with Harmon and Quads brought to you by the Toyota BZ4X. The BZ4X's fresh look is just an added bonus to its range since you can drive up to 406 kilometers on a single charge. That's enough to get you from Kitsilano to Whistler or Kamloops to Kelowna and back and still be home in time for the game. Now that's what we'd call electric. The best part, by choosing electric, you can get up to $11,000 in rebates and incentives. The BZ4X are in stock and selling quickly, so make sure to visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealer to get your hands on one. Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.